In our tradition, we see our journey into the dark, into winter, as the time we restore ourselves, nursing the tender creativity that would perish with exposure to light. Starhawk. Welcome to the online worship service for Buckman Bridge Unitarian Universalist Church, or as we like to call it, BBUUC. My name is Erin Rogers, and I am serving as your worship leader this morning. My pronouns are she, her. Even though we have been separated during these times, we remain together through many virtual opportunities. Please see our church calendar on bbuuc.org for upcoming activities. To learn more about our denomination, you can visit the Unitarian Universalist website at uua.org. Also, please join us after the service at 11:30 for our virtual worship and fellowship hour.
United by Story and Bounded by Love by Andrea Hawkins Camper. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember to grieve, to prophecy, to complete our harvest before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we have always been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we have always done, united by story and bound by love.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the body, gathered here in the struggles and the body, gathered here in the struggle of the power, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mysteries of the body, gathered here in the struggles and the body, gathered here in the struggle of the power, Spirit, draw near.
Hello. This morning we're going to hear two stories. I wonder if you'll find what they have in common. So let's settle in and open our hearts and our minds to the wisdom they share with us. Our first story is called Who Loves the Dark, and it's written by Sherry Philibom and was adapted by Andrea James. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. As night began to descend, the child became more and more frightened. I'm sure any of us would be frightened too in that situation. But what made this child even more frightened was that they had always been afraid of the dark. They were more afraid of the dark than any of their friends or their siblings. They didn't know why they were more afraid than their friends or siblings. They only knew that when the sun went down, they were always very glad to be inside their brightly lit house. When the sun was all the way down and the only light that was shining was a tiny sliver of light from the moon and the stars, the child got so frightened, all they could do was sit down and cry, which they did. Soon a voice said, "What's all that racket?" They looked down and they saw a mole squinting up at them. "I'm lost in the woods," the child said, and it's dark and I'm afraid." "Well," said the mole, "perhaps you could take your noisy crying farther down the path. I hate having to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go on back into your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up in the direction that this newer voice seemed to come from, and in the darkness, they could see two glowing eyes looking down at them. Before they could scream, which was their first impulse, there was a flutter of wings and the creature flew down near them. And they could see that it was an owl, who said, please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." At this point, the child burst out crying even harder than before. Because as frightened as they were of the dark, having non-human animals speak to them was beyond their experience and frightening. "No need for that crying," said the owl. "If you just give me your address, I can guide you home." With that, the child did indeed stop crying, partly out of relief that someone might be able to lead them home, and partly out of curiosity as to how an owl could locate a home with or without an address. But deciding they had very little to lose, the child choked back their tears and replied that they would be very grateful to be guided home, and gave the owl their address. So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest, and what the child hoped was truly the direction of their home. When their fear left them just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, they began to notice their surroundings a bit. At one point, they noticed a type of flower that they'd never seen before, and slowed the pace just a little so they could gaze at it. "That," said the owl as they continued walking, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers too, and night gladiolas, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night." After a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud, "And of course, there are animals too who love night and the darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime, the light hurts my eyes, so that's when I like to go into my tree and sleep." To this, the child replied, "Well, I like daytime. I like to kick a ball. I like the hot sun at the beach. When the dark isn't scary, it's just boring." "Boring, you say?" replied the owl, who clearly had some opinions to express on this point. But just then there was a fluttering and a squeaking around their heads, and it took the child just a few seconds to figure out what it was, and they shrieked, "A bat!" and started flailing their arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. The shape backed away and, hovering just out of reach, said, "Excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello." "Well, hello to you, Miss Bat," said the owl. "This child was out here in the forest and he's lost, and I'm helping them find their way home. You're not hurt, are you?" "Well," said the bat, "I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I think I'll live." "But you're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink our blood?" "No," said the bat, "but I've been eating lots of yummy insects who would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help overhearing what you said about darkness being boring. If you'll just come a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting." The group left the path and traveled through the deepest forest for what seemed like just a few minutes, and they came out onto a dark beach. "Here we are," said the bat. The child gazed at the beach, lit very gently by moonlight, and thought, "This is certainly beautiful in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting." Just then, there was movement in the sand, like a little bubble rising up. Then there was another little bubble and another, and it looked almost as if the beach were boiling. Then, out of one of those little bubbles of sand popped a rounded shape. "Looks like we got here just in time," said the bat. What do you think they were seeing? Well, as they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what they were seeing. Lots and lots of baby turtles, hundreds, climbing out of the sand. This was truly exciting. Once each turtle shape pulled itself up out of the sand, it started crawling as fast as its legs could carry it towards the water. When the baby turtles hatch, said Al in a sort of teacherly voice, they need to find their way to the water, and they almost always do this at nighttime because they follow the moon and the starlight reflecting off the water. Daytime light is too bright and scattered. Oh, said the child as they turned to leave and head back towards the owl's home. Al spoke again. You know who else loves the darkness besides all the nighttime plants and animals? The moon and the stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime as well, hidden behind a wall of light. But when that wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty. Eventually, the child and the owl left the forest and walked down a street that the child recognized as their own. They were very happy and relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to Al, to whom they gave a very gentle hug and a thank you as they went into their house, and being extremely tired, got ready for bed. Before they went to bed, as a matter of habit, they bent down to turn on the nightlight that usually glowed through the night. But before their fingers touched the switch of the nightlight, they smiled and pulled their hand away. The child got into bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of the darkness soothe them to sleep.
Our offertory words are by John Saxon. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. As members and friends of this religious community, we share our time and energy, our creativity, imagination and vision, our talents, skills, and gifts, and the streams of our individual lives to create a river that is both deep and broad, a river that is made of many streams, sustains life, and refreshes the land through which it flows. But the river of this community also depends on our shared financial support that makes real our shared values and vision. We invite you to make an offering to support the mission of our church by using the PayPal Giving Fund link on our YouTube page or through the Donate tab on our church website. Your offering will be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship. Thank you. This is the time in our service when we share our joys, sorrows, and milestones by lighting flames around our chalice to deepen our community and offer comfort. If you wish to share a specific event with the congregation or lift a sorrow or concern up for thoughts or prayers, please contact the church office by phone or email at office@bbuuc.org by Tuesday at noon for inclusion in the next virtual service. We know that some of our congregants are dealing with health issues. Some have been hospitalized and others are dealing with difficult family circumstances. Others are moving through grief at this time as well. Though many choose not to share publicly during worship, please know that we are here for you and care deeply. So we light a single flame this week for the many joys, sorrows, and milestones throughout our congregation that remain unspoken, but in our hearts.
Breathe in, breathe out.
The great, bright yellow sun had shone all day, and now the day was coming to an end. The light in the sky changed from blue to pink to a strange, dusky purple. The sun sank lower into the long, glowing clouds. The little boy was sorry to see that the day ended. He and his friends had played in the garden. When they were tired of playing, they lay down in the grass and felt the sun on them warm and soft, like a sleeping cat resting. There had been icy lemonade in the afternoon, which they drank under the pear trees. And the little boy's mother read him a story on the porch before he went to bed. Now, his father came to say, "Good night."
Why does the day have to end? He asked him.
"So night can begin," he said. "Look." He pointed out the window where, high in the darkening sky, behind the branches of the pear tree, the little boy could see a pale silver of moon. "That's the night beginning," his father said, resting his hand on the boy's shoulder. "The night with the moon and the stars and darkness for you to dream in."
But where does the sun go when the day ends? The little boy asked.
"The day doesn't end," said his father. "It begins somewhere else. The sun will be shining there when night begins here. Nothing else."
Nothing? The little boy asked.
"Nothing," his father said. "It begins in another place or in a different way." The little boy lay in bed and his father sat beside him.
Where does the wind go when it stops? He asked.
"It blows away to make the trees dance somewhere else."
Where does the dandelion go when it blows away?
"It carries the seeds of new dandelions to someone's lawn."
Where does the mountain go after the top?
"Down to where it becomes the valley."
Where do the waves go when they break on the sand?
"Sucked back to the sea into new waves."
Where does the rain go when the storm is over?
"Into clouds to make other storms."
And where do clouds go when they move across the sky?
"To make shade somewhere else."
And the leaves in the forest when they turn color and fall?
"Into the ground to become part of new trees with new leaves."
But when the leaves fall, that is the end of something, the little boy said. It is the end of autumn.
"Yes," his father said. "The end of autumn is when the winter begins."
And the end of winter? The little boy asked.
"The end of winter, when the snow melts and the birds come back, is the beginning of spring," his father said. The little boy smiled.
It really goes on, he said. Nothing ends.
He looked out at the sky. The sun was gone completely. The lovely pink clouds had disappeared. The sky was dark and purple-black. High above the branches of the pear tree shone clearly now a thin new moon. "Today's over," his father said. "It's time for sleep. And tomorrow morning, when you wake, the moon will be beginning a night far away, and the sun will be here to begin a new day."
We Are the Song Between by Raven Stanfield. We are the song between sky and ground. Sing for your life and for the world we're making. Nothing is lost that can't be found.
Today, we celebrate the last of the 3 harvest festivals of the Celtic Wheel of the Year. We started with Lammas at the beginning of August, celebrating the first harvest of the season. Next, near the end of September, came Mabon, the fall equinox, when the days and nights are of equal length. And the last of the harvest festivals, Samhain, which is today, also known to us as Halloween, we celebrate the harvest cycle when we bring in the last of the vegetables and flowers from our gardens and preserve them so that they'll last us all winter. This is a liminal time. Do you remember what liminal means? It means between two things. between fall and winter, not really one or the other. We have harvested the crops, but not yet planted our seeds. It is a time to rest. In many cultures, it's the time when the veil between the worlds is thin. Many of us may be familiar with the movie Coco. It's about the Mexican holiday called Dia de los Muertos, a liminal time when things or spirits move back and forth between our here and now world and the world of story and memory. We have our own Universalist holiday for this time called All Souls Day, which is celebrated tomorrow on November 1st. We stay connected to each other in the cold and the dark, knowing that it's necessary for the earth and for us to have rest and renewal so it and we can grow new things in the next cycle. These connections with each other, when we huddle together to share our flames, our food, and our stories, are strengthened by this liminal time. When we focus on being together instead of scattering into the daylight and the warmth of summer. As this summer season ends and the spread of COVID eases, we're beginning to come back together as a community, and we recognize how important we are to each other. Our lives move in cycles because they are meant to do so. We evolved from nature, and so our existence follows the patterns of nature. Knots to root us in each other's pain, blessings to sparkle and reflect each other's flame. Darkness amplifies the light. The days are getting shorter, the nights longer. Our seventh principle calls us to know our place in the independent web of all of existence, of which we are a part. That means that we evolved from the ecosystems of the planet, and that we can look to nature as one of the ways of understanding how to choose to live our lives. So I wonder, what did we learn from nature today? We learned from today's stories that the day will cycle into night and back again, that the seasons cycle from fall into winter, which will in turn cycle into spring and summer, over and over again. And in each of our stories, there was companionship, a friend, a guardian, a guide, both to help us gather new knowledge and understanding, and to hold our hand in the dark. Blessed be.
Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark as you do the light. Receive the gifts that come to us by day and by night. I choose to honor the dark, uncertainty and change. Deliver us from fear until only love remains. Honor the dark
Surrounding You by Barbara McAfee. I wish you courage for the next step and the next. I wish you peace in the middle of the storm. I wish you unexpected joy, strength to see you through, and a heart wide open to all the love surrounding you. It's surrounding you. We are surrounding you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.